Regular meeting number 61 will now come to order. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. We are honored to have the Reverend Dr. Susan Smith with us this evening. And Dr. Smith, if you'd come forward to the podium and lead us in prayer.
Shall we pray? Spirit of the living God, the God of all of us here, the God of Christians and Jews and Muslims and Hindus, the God who made us all black and white and yellow, that God, to you we pray this day to first of all say thank you for another day of life that we didn't have to see. I ask God that you come now in the midst of this chamber and wrap your arms around these who have been called to lead people. It's not an easy thing to lead people. And sometimes, God, if we don't feel like you're with us, we can lose hope and we can be discouraged. So I ask that you wrap your arms around them and lead them and guide them as they do the work for the least of these in this city. I ask you to give them courage. I ask you to give them strength. And I ask you to give them the wisdom that only you can give. I ask it in the name of the God of us all. Amen.
Clerk, call the roll.
Craig, Klein, Miller, Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal?
So moved.
Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Craig, Klein, Miller, Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. This week's communications received by the City Clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the City Bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read into the record?
Not at this time.
Are there any resolutions or announcements from members of council? Councilmember Craig.
Thank you, President Ginther. I do have two announcements I'd like to highlight this evening. Tomorrow, on December the 10th, we acknowledge Human Rights Day. On December the 10th, 1948, the United Nations General Assembly, via the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, recognized that the inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Human rights should be protected by the rule of law. Friendly relationships between nations must be fostered. The peoples of the UN have affirmed their faith in human rights. The dignity and the worth of the human person, the equal rights of men and women are determined to promote social progress, better standards of life, and larger freedom, and have promised to promote human rights and a common understanding of these rights. Director Bell, could you speak more clearly on this issue?
Thank you so much, Chair Craig, President Ginther, members of Council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on the United Nations General Assembly resolution making December 10th Human Rights Day. You know, although 65 years ago tomorrow, the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted December 10th in 1948 we still, though, are in the struggle for civil rights and human rights for all people. Current struggles here in Ohio combating voter suppression tactics and the rights of our young people to a quality education, along with human slavery that we are dealing with currently. On this day, though, we mourn the passing of a tremendous advocate and leader of human rights, President Nelson Mandela. As I read the preamble in Article 1 of the Declaration, it embodies what Nelson Mandela stood for, which was the inherent rights of all human beings. And it goes, disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind, and the advent of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief in the freedom from fear and what has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. On July 2nd, 2014, it will mark the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Civil Rights Act that outlawed many forms of discrimination, yet the struggle continues. Our Office of Community Relations Commission enforces the Civil Rights Code, along with advocating for and educating the community on civil and human rights through programs such as the upcoming Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Arts and Oratorical Contest, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. March from City Hall to Veterans Memorial for the theatrical program, and our 5-day Civil Rights Tour in April, going through Cincinnati, Atlanta, Tuskegee, Selma, Birmingham, Montgomery, and Memphis, Tennessee. In conclusion, on December 10th, I ask all of us not only to recognize Human Rights Day, but to embrace it in our lives in the spirit of President Nelson Mandela. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Bell. I think we all need to pause and reflect. Such a giant person that 27 years of imprisonment that taught us all how to forgive, not only just simply to forgive, but to love and to they prick the heart of a nation, but more so the heart of this world, that we all can be the beneficiaries of certainly the leadership. Dr. King also said that we're all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, a single garment of destiny. He said this, I can never be all that I ought to be until you're what you ought to be. So I want to certainly thank you. And we all need to be mindful that we're here to serve and not just simply to be served. And that while anybody is suffering, it ought to affect all of us in a way that we would move to action. So thank you very, very much for your fine dissertation on the human rights issue tonight. Councilmember Tyson.
Thank you, Councilman Craig. I just want to say thank you to you and to Director Bell for certainly sharing the information regarding human rights, and also share your comments regarding Nelson Mandela. We certainly have seen, as Councilman Craig just mentioned, a person that was jailed for 27 years and then to be able to be released, and certainly the United States played a major role, as well other countries in the ending of apartheid, as well as his release. But to come out of that type of an environment with not hatred but love, and that's certainly something that I think that we all have to just need to try to emulate, to try to love one another and support one another, and make sure people have dignity and respect. So thank you this evening for sharing the human rights and talking about the legacy of President Nelson Mandela. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Tyson. Any additional comments? Well, thank you again, Director, for all of the work that you and your staff are doing to continue to set our city on top of a hill in terms of our relationships and serving people. We appreciate all that you're doing. Next is the City of Columbus Equal Business Opportunity Center cordially invites you to our open house, a holiday celebration. And it says, please join us for refreshments. And hors d'oeuvres while enjoying the company of other minority female-owned business owners, city leadership, EBOC representatives at the new location. And that's Wednesday, December the 18th from 1 o'clock p.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. The location is the Columbus Model Cities facility at 1393 East Broad Street on the second floor, and no RSVP is necessary. Thank you. That is all that I have, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Craig. Councilmember Klein. President Pro Tem Miller. Councilmember Mills. Councilmember Tyson. I just wanted to, and Councilmember Craig and Councilmember Tyson made mention of this. This is the first time we've gathered since the loss of President Mandela, and thought that although he was a son of South Africa, he was a man of the world, and freedom and liberty and justice have never seen a greater champion grace the earth. And I felt it was important for us to take a moment of silence and then see a video that America's poet, Dr. Maya Angelou, put together as a tribute to him before we start our business this evening. So if you join me in a moment of silence, and then I'll ask Mr. Letty to start the video. Thank you.
His day is done, is done. The news came on the wings of a wind reluctant to carry its burden. Nelson Mandela's day is done. The news expected and still unwelcome reached us in the United States, and suddenly our world became somber. Our skies were leadened. His day is done. We see you, South African people, standing speechless at the slamming of that final door through which no traveler returns. Our spirits reach out to you, Bantu, Zulu, Xhosa, Boer. We think of you and your son of Africa, your father, your one more wonder of the world. We send our souls to you as you reflect upon your David, armed with a mere stone, facing down the mighty Goliath. Your man of strength, Gideon, emerging triumphant, although born into the brutal embrace of apartheid, scarred by the savage atmosphere of racism, unjustly imprisoned in the bloody maws of South African dungeons. Would the man survive? Could the man survive? His answer strengthened men and women around the world. In the Alamo in San Antonio, Texas, on the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, in Chicago's Loop, in New Orleans' Mardi Gras, in New York City's Times Square. We watched as the hope of Africa sprang through the prison's doors, his stupendous heart intact, his gargantuan will hale and hearty. He had not been crippled by brutes, nor was his passion for the rights of human beings diminished by 27 years of imprisonment. Even here in America, we felt the cool, refreshing breeze of freedom when Nelson Mandela took the seat of presidency in his country, where formerly he was not even allowed to vote. We were enlarged by tears of pride as we saw Nelson Mandela's former prison guards invited courteously by him to watch from the front rows his inauguration. We saw him accept the World's Award in Norway with the grace and gratitude of the Solon and ancient Roman courts, and the confidence of African chiefs from ancient royal stools. No sun outlasts its sunset, but will rise again and bring the dawn. Yes, Mandela's day is done, yet we, his inheritors, will open the gates wider for reconciliation, and we will respond generously to the cries of blacks and whites, Asian, Hispanics, the poor who live piteously on the floor of our planet. He has offered us understanding. We will not withhold forgiveness, even from those who do not ask. Nelson Mandela's day is done. We confess it in tearful voices, yet we lift our own to say thank you. Thank you, our Gideon. Thank you, our David, our great courageous man. We will not forget you. We will not dishonor you. We will remember and be glad that you lived among us, that you taught us, and that you loved us all.
Thanks for letting us spend a few minutes to reflect on one of the most amazing people to grace the earth. You don't lose inspirational and international leaders with an impact all over the world like Gandhi, King, and Mandela very often. And so I thought it was fitting for us to do that tonight. Any other comments from our other elected officials? City Auditor? City Attorney? Are there any additional requests? We do have two pieces of legislation that I'd like to remove from the consent action portion of the agenda. First, in Public Service and Transportation, 2786-2013. And in Public Utilities, 2695-2013. Are there any other requests from members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from the consent action portion of the agenda? If not, may we now have a motion to waive reading of the titles of 30-day legislation
So moved.
by the city clerk? Second. Clerk, call the roll.
Greg Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read into the record the ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading?
Development Committee Ordinance 2884-2013, Recreation and Parks Committee Ordinance 2863-2013, Public Service and Transportation Committee Ordinances 2749, 2853, 2854, and 2881-2013, Public Utilities Committee Ordinances 2406, 2480, 2544, 2572, 2589, 2636, 2644, 2650, 2667, 2698, 2712, 2726, and 2737-2013, Rules and Reference Committee, Ordinance 2929-2013.
The following ordinances appear on our agenda as consent actions. Will the clerk now read the ordinance numbers of each into the record?
Finance Committee Ordinances 451-2013, 2743, 2784, 2788, 2812, 2892, 2894-2013. Health and Human Services Committee Ordinances 2711, 2747-2013. Development Committee Ordinances 2802, 2654, 2806, 2826, 2860, 2864, 2889, 2891, and 2893-2013. Public Safety and Judiciary Committee Ordinances 2591, 2640, 2673, 2699, 2771, 2861, and 2869-2013. Public Service and Transportation Committee Resolution 248X, 254X, 264X-2013. Ordinances 2708, 2719, 2721, 2748, 2777, 2787, 2800, 2844-2013. Public Utilities Committee, ordinances 1728, 2520, 2573, 2574, 2575, 2576, 2619, 2629, 2639, 2648, 2651, 2666, 2687, 2702, 2704, 2706, 2717, 2847-2013, Resolution 260X-2013. And we have appointments from the Mayor's Office numbered A0177, 183, 184, 185, 205, 212, 214, 231, 232, 236, 237, 238, 239, 240, 241, 242, 243, 244, 245, 246, 247, and 248-2013.
Thank you. We do have one speaker on the consent agenda this evening, Mr. Nathaniel Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins, if you'd come forward to the podium. You've signed up to speak in support of (2891-2013). Sir, if you'd share your name, address, any organizations you represent. You have 3 minutes to speak to the ordinance.
1612 Arlington Avenue, Nate Wilkins, the chairman of Solely Vacant Independent Property in the North Linden area. I'm just all for it, for a good use and for a good what's going to be done with the property. So I'm just all for it. Just like to see be utilized for something again. I'm all for it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. Any questions or comments for Mr. Wilkins? Thank you, sir, for coming down and sharing your thoughts on that issue. I have a motion for approval of these items designated as consent actions. Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll by voice.
Craig?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes, with the exception of 2654, 20.
Miller? Yes. Mills?
Yes, with the exception of 2520-2013, 2573-2013, and 2576-2013, on which I am abstaining.
Oh, sorry. Tyson? President Ginther?
We will now proceed with the second reading of 30-day table in the emergency legislation. The first committee is the Finance Committee. Councilmember Tyson chairs that committee. Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The first ordinance I have in finance is 2727 to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into a contract with the option to purchase Honda Civic CNG automobiles with Lindsay Honda, to authorize the expenditure of $1 to establish the contracts from the mail, print services, and UTC, and to declare an emergency. The total estimated expenditure will be approximately $263,000. And I move for passage.
Craig, Klein, Miller, Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. The next ordinance is Ordinance 2766-2013 to authorize the Finance and Management Director on behalf of the Fleet Management Division to enter into a contract with Asset Works, Inc., where the competitive bidding process has been waived due to proprietary software for consulting services related to the Fleet Focus Enterprise software application, and to authorize an expenditure of $137,800 from the Fleet Management Operating Fund, and to declare an emergency. The Fleet Focus tracks all core functions related to the overall management of city vehicles, the general maintenance, GPS, telematics, and tracking of vehicles and equipment, processing, repair, and preventive maintenance work orders, operating expenses in regard to fuel, oil, and licensing, and billing and tracking for vehicle equipment and usage. And now I'm going to ask Deputy Director Dave Bush to make comments on this legislation and the waive of competitive bidding.
Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. First of all, this ordinance waives competitive bidding because of the proprietary nature of the software package that we have. No other firm is in a position to be able to advise us and work to enhance the system except for the seller of the software package in the first place. The City of Columbus maintains between public utilities and finance and management over 6,300 vehicles on and off road, and the fleet focus system allows us to track the costs and the warranty and maintenance costs and a lot of information with respect to effective, efficient management of those assets. The reason for this upgrade is we believe we're utilizing approximately 40% of the potential of the package, and what the vendor is working with us is to first of all, more fully develop the strength and the value of that package, the other 60%, but allow us to develop better rule books, if you will, process manuals and the like, so we can push the information out to the agencies better and allow them to work with us in maintaining this same fleet. Also, environmental footprinting is a big issue for us, certainly for this council and this administration. Our ability to track how we're moving that needle forward on environmental compliance and environmental improvement. A lot of that has to do with our fuel fleet systems, our fuel fleet tank systems, where the fuel is dispensed, how it's dispensed, and how it's being maintained. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Director. I move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. I'd now like to move to Health and Human Services. Thank you. The first ordinance is 2433-2013 to authorize and direct the Board of Health to modify and increase a contract with Columbus Neighborhood Health Center, Inc. to authorize the expenditure of $120,000 from the Health Special Revenue Fund and to waive the provisions of competitive bidding and to declare an emergency. This legislation is for additional support, which is needed for the opening of the new John R. Maloney Health Center, which is located in the Southern Gateway, located at 1905 Parsons Avenue. And this ordinance also waives competitive bidding provisions to the city code. This ordinance also will cover the fixed and responsible startup costs to support the opening of the Columbus Neighborhood Health Service. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage and call for call for voice vote as I amend to 30-day.
Craig, Klein, Miller, Mills,
Abstain.
Tyson,
Yes.
President Ginther.
And I would now like to waive second reading.
Craig, Klein, Miller, Mills,
Abstain.
Tyson,
Yes.
President Ginther.
And now I move for passage by voice.
Craig, Klein, Miller, Mills, Tyson,
Yes.
President Ginther.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 2734. That's 2013. I'm going to ask the Reverend John Eggert to start walking toward the podium. It is to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a contract with the Community Development for All People for the provision of social service activities for eligible residents on the Columbus South Side, to authorize expenditure of $30,000 from the general fund and to declare an emergency. This funding is to assist with the cost for space, equipment, and miscellaneous costs and supplies for the transition of the Southside Settlement House programs, including the food meal program and after-school activities and GED services. Reverend Eggert, the floor is yours.
Thank you. President Ginther and City Council members, I want to thank you for your ongoing support of our efforts to improve the quality of life for the residents on the south side of Columbus. This evening, I'm especially appreciative to Councilwoman Tyson and the Council's Health and Human Services Committee for this legislation providing funding for community development for all people to continue to operate programs that we have carried forward from the former Southside Settlement House. Our daily lunch program called Loaves and Fishes offers a nutritious hot meal 5 days a week to 100 or more hungry diners. Our after-school program that's now housed in Lincoln Park Elementary School has grown to 70 students each evening, Monday through Friday, and converts to a freedom school with the Children's Defense Fund each summer. The Senior Transportation Program assists low-income seniors with trips to grocery stores as well as recreational outings. Community Development for All People continues to work with the City of Columbus and an array of community partners on catalytic initiatives that are transforming the Southern Gateway area. We have just finished construction of 40 new rental Southern Gateway homes, including funding from the Department of Development. These houses are now occupied with families that are delighted to be living in this dynamic and improving neighborhood. During the past 15 months, with funds from individual Southside champions as well as funding from the City of Columbus, we have made improvements on the exterior of 58 owner-occupied homes. Next spring, we will break ground on 56 affordable senior citizen apartments. All of this is occurring at the same time, as was already mentioned in this meeting, that City Council has opened the new John Maloney Health Center, which is truly a blessing to the entire South Side. Finally, I'm delighted to report that plans are continuing to move forward on schedule to redevelop the closed Reeb Elementary School into a state-of-the-art community center with 60,000 square feet of space, 3 times the size of the former Southside Settlement House. The Reeb Center will be the hub of a host of educational and human services that are designed to fulfill the hopes and the aspirations of the community residents. We thank you for your ongoing support and pledge ourselves at Community Development for All People to fully stay engaged in this ongoing renaissance of the South Side. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Edgar, for the work that you do each and every day for the residents of this community, but especially for those in the Southern Gateway. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilman Craig?
Let me thank you very much, Chair Tyson. I just wanted to acknowledge the work of Reverend Edgar regarding our veterans. I wanted to, Faster's reach is far and it's deep. And that's not hyperbole. I think accepting the leadership in our housing initiatives, our food programs, our nutrition programs, our education programs with our children, I just don't want that to be overlooked, and we're deeply appreciative of your leadership, of your commitment, and certainly your staff and all that occurs not only on the South Side, but around this nation. And I wanted to certainly personally acknowledge that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Craig. I move for passage.
Craig, Klein, Miller, Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you, and I would now like to move to workforce development. Thank you, and the last piece of legislation I have this evening is 2722, and I'm going to ask Kristen Easterday and John Kim to move toward the podium. This is legislation 2722-2013 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a contract with the Columbus Chamber of Commerce for the purpose of drafting and implementing a small business survey to authorize the appropriation expenditure of $20,000 from the Jobs Growth Fund and to declare an emergency. And again, the purpose of this is to focus on the quality workforce recruitment, retention, and training needs. I'm going to let them speak in just 1 second, but I also just want to say it complements the work that's being done through the with Director Carter and the EBOC, Equal Business Opportunity, because they just have a survey out working with small businesses, and they don't. In this particular survey, they're asking a number of questions around small businesses, minority businesses, and what their needs are, capital needs, et cetera. And I just believe that what we're doing here will also complement this, what the document that they're going to put together, that they will get back from the survey. And we'll use both of these documents to be able to continue for us to help small businesses. So thank you, Director Carter, for this, and we look forward to giving this information to you as you move forward. And Kristen, the floor is now yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Tyson, President Ginther, members of council. I'm Kristen Easterday, Director of Local Government Relations at the Columbus Chamber. This is Jung Kim, our Director of Research. On behalf of the Columbus Chamber, we look forward to partnering with you on this important study regarding workforce development. As you may know, the Columbus Chamber works to provide solutions, connections, and networking opportunities to businesses within our region. This survey is going to be a great piece of legislation as we work together. We live in a great city that actually values business, and being proactive and looking at how we can better serve our needs of our business is great. Thank you for your efforts and support.
As Krista noted, my name is Jung Kim. I'm the Columbus Chamber's Director of Research, and we are very much looking forward to participating in this study, working with the Council. The study will provide the information necessary to the Columbus City Council and other stakeholders on some of the concerns that small businesses face, especially focusing on issues of overall business environment and climate, and workforce quality, retention, training, recruitment, and other related issues. From Columbus 2020's business retention and expansion visits, we know that there is a sweet spot of businesses with about 15 to 50 employees where they face workforce issues in a way that is distinct from other businesses. Our survey will cover businesses with 50 employees and under, but in this 15 to 50 range, you have businesses that have grown enough to have figured out the products they're selling and how to sell, but they're not quite large enough to have personnel-focused staff. So they have human resources issues that they're dealing with, but not necessarily the expertise in-house, the resources in-house to work with that. So I think the survey will get at the nuances behind those kinds of issues that this particular size range of businesses face. So again, we at the Chamber look very much forward to working with the city to find out more about these business concerns and workforce issues. Thank you.
Any questions for them? Thank you. We look forward to the results of the survey. Thank you so much. And I just want to add to that, I think that since Director Christie and your team and the training that you guys have been doing for small businesses, really appreciate that, because I believe that we know that training is definitely needed for these small businesses. It's evident by certainly by the individuals, the number of companies that have certainly been working with your department and getting those training needs. And I think that this survey will even give us more direction to be able to see what training that's needed from not only what the city's doing, but what else is out there in our community. So we just think that this is just a great partnership in getting more information that supports the other directors within the city. And so with that, I'd like to move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. And just the last announcement is that, as we all know, the 2014 proposed budget has already been given to City Council. We've begun to have hearings on that, and we're going to have some hearings this week. On tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we'll have the Finance, Management, and Health and Human Services budget hearing at 5. This Wednesday at 11, we'll have the 11th at 5 o'clock, Public Service and the Public Utilities hearing. On December the 12th, Administration at 5 o'clock, too, Administration and the Veterans Affairs budget. Also on Thursday the 12th, we will have Public Safety and the Judiciary budget hearing at 6 o'clock after the Veterans and Administration budget hearing. And then finally, on December the 17th, we will have the Development, Recreation, and Parks hearing at 5 o'clock. And then next Wednesday, on the 18th, we'll have the public comment hearing on the overall budget at 5 o'clock in council chambers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tyson. Our next committee is the Administration Committee. Councilmember Craig chairs that committee. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Ginther. Tonight in the Administration Committee, I have Ordinance 2665-2013 to amend the Management Compensation Plan, Ordinance number 1150-2007, as amended by amending Sections 5E-C180. The City Attorney 5E-C185, City Auditor 5E-C215, City Council Member 5E-C220, City Council President, and 5E-M090, Mayor E, and to declare an emergency. These elected officials will be subject to pension pickup reductions and insurance contribution increases, just as all employees covered by the Management Compensation Plan. Emergency action is required to meet city charter requirements. Funding will be included in prospective annual budgets. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. That is all that I have in administration.
Thank you, Councilmember Craig. Our next committee is the Development Committee. Councilmember Klein chairs that committee. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President Ginther. One piece in development tonight, 2841-2013, to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to amend the Community Reinvestment Area Agreement with Cassidy Gateway Partners, LLC and Mid-Ohio Oncology Hematology, Inc., to amend the new full-time permanent job requirement as set forth in the agreement and to declare an emergency. Director Shoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, President Ginther, members of council. This is a part of our ongoing efforts following the Tax Incentive Review Committee that went on earlier this fall. This is a case where we had an employer that made a commitment to create it was 80 jobs. They have not met that, but they have been within a range where we would not have offered a different incentive going in. So what we're doing in this case is going back and amending the commitments under the agreement to bring them into compliance. Our team has gone out, met with the company, reviewed the data, looked at the situation in total. The company has made substantial efforts to meet their commitments. They just haven't been able to make them for some market conditions, but they are within 70% of their commitments. They're actually paying an average wage that is above what they committed to. So we are comfortable amending this to bring them into compliance, but not having any substantial change in the benefit to them.
Any questions or comments for the Director? I move for passage. Thank you, Director.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
And I have a series of Recreation and Parks items that I'm going to be requesting to table for 1 week. The first is 2688-2013. I move to table for 1 week.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
2828-2013, the same.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
2883-2013, the same.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
2913-2013, the same.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Technology Committee. President Pro Tem Miller chairs that committee. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Ginther. In the Technology Committee tonight, we have 2720-2013 to authorize the Director of Technology to modify an increase in existing construction contract with the Gutenkopf Corporation to provide for additional investment in the city's fiber optic network, providing high-speed connectivity, to authorize the expenditure of $1,407,570.55 from the Information Services Capital Improvement Fund, and to declare an emergency. This modification will provide additional investment in the city's fiber network. And this modification actually will be new fiber to Fire Station 24, and that's also the police substation 18. New fiber at various locations in North Columbus, and also link Columbus FiberNet and a CityNet fiber system to the downtown area to complete the activation of these fiber rings. The fiber projects provide diverse routing for many of the city locations, which will prevent facility outages in the event of a fiber cut. The additional benefit is also realized in elimination of leased circuit expenditures from the city's operating budget and increased network speeds at the new fiber connected facilities. And as since being on council, I've always talked about the fiber network being our fourth utility, and this is just another expansion of that. And as I speak to other individuals around the city, this is also going to be an economic development opportunity for the city of Columbus. With that, I would like to make sure that I have all the support of my fellow council member by passage of this legislation.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Our next committee is the Public Safety and Judiciary Committee. Councilmember Mills chairs that committee. Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Tonight in Public Safety and Judiciary, I have the following ordinances, beginning with Ordinance 2865-2013, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into contracts for the option to purchase service and training ammunition with Vance Outdoor, Inc. and Keesler Police Supply, Inc., to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Codes, to authorize the expenditure of $2 to establish the contracts from the Mail Print Services and UTC Fund, and to declare an emergency. The option to purchase service and training ammunition will be for a contract term proposed for 4 years, for 1 year, with the option of extension for additional year. The contract expiration dates are March 31st through March 31st, 2017. The purchasing office opened formal bids on October 17, 2013, with 38 bids were solicited. 2 bids were received. The purchasing office is recommending award of the contract to the lowest, responsive, and responsible and best bidders, Vance Outdoors, Inc. and Keesler Police Supply. If there are no other comments or questions, I move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Next, I have ordinance 2867-2013 to authorize the acceptance of a grant from the Franklin County Board of Commissioners Office of Homeland Security and Justice Program in the amount of $102,000 for the funding of 2014 VAWA Domestic Violence Prosecutors Program, to authorize a transfer of matching funds in the amount of $34,000 from the general fund, to authorize the appropriation of total funds in the amount of $136,000, and to declare an emergency. If there are no other comments or questions, I move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Next, I have ordinance 2904-2013 to authorize the administrative and presiding judge of the Franklin County Municipal Court to accept a grant award from Franklin County for management of the Franklin County Foreclosure Mediation Project, to appropriate $200,000 from the unappropriated balance of the General Government Grant Fund, and to declare an emergency. The court's mediation department will manage and provide the county's foreclosure mediations. This legislation will appropriate the $200,000 from the General Government Grant Fund. If there are no other comments or questions, I move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
That's all I have in legislation. One announcement regarding our hearing, as you heard from Councilmember Tyson. Thursday, December 12th at 6:00 p.m. we'll be here to discuss the public safety and judiciary budget. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Mills. Our next committee is the Public Service and Transportation Committee. Councilmember Craig will be bringing legislation before us this evening. Councilmember Craig.
Thank you, President Ginther. In the Public Service Committee this evening, we have Ordinance 0253X-3013 to declare the necessity and intent of the City of Columbus, Ohio, to appropriate fee simple title and lesser interest regarding real estate needs for the City of Columbus, Ohio, Department of Public Service, Division of Design and Construction, traffic signal installation, Mill Avenue signals, 2945 Drive E, PID 540007-100029, and to declare an emergency. I move to table indefinitely.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Ordinance 2897-2013 to authorize the Director of Public Service to execute a 3-year agreement with the Short North Special Improvement District, better known as SID, of Columbus, Inc., for the design, production, and distribution of communications materials, such as flyers, signs, and various services to inform the public about public parking availability, locations, and policies in the Short North, to authorize expenditure of up to $3,825 from the general fund for the Division of Mobility Options. Parking permits surcharge connected will be deposited in the general fund, and to declare an emergency. I move to table 1 week pending public hearing.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
0293 2013 to amend Ordinance 1909-2013 to authorize the Director of Public Service to establish permit parking along the west side Kerr Street from Hull Avenue to Hubbard Avenue and along both sides of Hubbard Avenue from Pearl Avenue to Kerr Street and to declare an emergency. I move to table 1 week pending public hearing.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Now, if I can direct your attention to turn to page 10 of Public Service, Ordinance 2786 -2013. To amend the 2013 capital improvement budget to authorize the city auditor to transfer cash and appropriation between projects within the Streets and Highway Bonds Fund, to authorize the Director of Public Service to enter into a guaranteed minimum reimbursement agreement with Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority for an infrastructure master plan for the Pondexter Village redevelopment area, to authorize the expenditure of $150,000 from the Streets and Highways Bonds Fund and to declare an emergency. First, I move to amend to 30 days. Or did that? Okay. Waive second reading. Are we done? Okay.
Craig.
Second on amending 30 days.
Craig.
Yes.
Klein. Yes. Miller. Yes. Mills. Tyson.
No.
President Ginther.
Abstain. I'm staying.
President Ginther.
And then waive second reading and request a voice vote.
Craig.
Yes.
Klein. Miller. Yes. Mills. Tyson.
Abstain.
President Ginther.
And then move for passage and request a voice vote.
Craig.
Yes.
Klein. Miller. Mills. Tyson.
Abstain.
President Ginther.
Thank you. May I proceed to public utilities? Tonight in public utilities, we have Ordinance 2623-2013 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to execute a construction contract with D&M Painting Corporation for the Morris Road South Ground Storage Tank Structural Improvements Project for the Division of Water, to authorize a transfer and expenditure up to $256,245 within the Waterworks Enlargement Voted Bonds Fund, to amend the 2013 capital improvements budget, to waive the provision of competitive bidding, and to declare an emergency. Through maintenance inspection, it was found that the current rafters of this tank, as well as the drain piping in the valve vault, were in need of repairs and rehabilitation. Furthermore, overflow piping on this tank is being updated to meet current EPA standards. For these reasons, it is necessary to have these structural items addressed under this contract. This contract will also include the installation of a mixing system in this tank to improve the water quality of the potable water that is discharged from this tank into our distribution center. Deputy Director O'Grady, would you please provide comment on this legislation with particular emphasis on the waive competitive bidding provision relative to this ordinance?
Sure. Thank you, Council President Ginther, Chair Craig. When the bids for this water tank project were submitted, the low bid was D&M Painting Corporation. Our requirements are that a proposal bid or proposal bond must be submitted for 10% of the project cost. The low bidder had added limitations to the proposal bond that were not part of that. Once notified of the defect, the company cured the defect in their bond, and after consultation with the city attorney's office, it was determined that it was in the department's best interest to request a waiver here.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any questions or comments? I move for passage.
Second.
Craig Line, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Next, if you would go back to the agenda page 12, under Utilities Ordinance 2695-2013, and I request to table indefinitely.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Thank you. That is all that I have this evening.
Anything else to come before council this evening? We do have one non-agenda speaker we'll take momentarily, but if not, entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Stand adjourned. Regular meeting number 62 will now come to order. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal?
So moved.
Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Are there any communications and reports received by the city clerk?
No, there are not.
Any first readings of 30-day legislation?
No, there are none.
Thank you. We will now go to the zoning committee. President Pro Tem Miller chairs that committee. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Ginther. Tonight in zoning, we have 2728-2013 to rezone 6193 Cleveland Avenue, being 2.2 plus or minus acres located on the west side of Cleveland Avenue, 150 plus or minus feet north of Homemaker Drive from LC4 Limited Commercial District, the CPD Commercial Plan Development District, and to declare an emergency. The applicant is TH Midwest Incorporated. Proposed use is fuel cells and car wash in conjunction with convenience retail. It received a Development Commission recommendation for approval and also the City Department recommendation for approval. And I have no speaker slips. If there are no questions or comments, I'd like to first to amend to emergency.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
Next, I'd like to move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
2760-2013 to rezone 257 Park Road, being 15.22 plus or minus acres, located on the south side of Park Road, 200 plus or minus feet east of Station Street from R Rural District to LAR 12 Limited Apartment Residential District. The applicant is Joseph Pingon. Proposed use is multi-unit residential development. It received the Development Commission recommendation for approval and also the City Department recommendation for approval. And I have no speaker slips. If there are no questions or comments, I'd like to move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
2816-2013 to rezone 1150 Dublin Road, being 1.5 plus or minus acres, located at the northeast corner of Dublin Road and Erland Avenue from M1 Manufacturing District to M Manufacturing District. The applicant is Turkey Run Incorporated. Proposed use is retail and office uses. It received the Development Commission recommendation for approval and also the City Department recommendation for approval. And I have no speaker slips. If there are no questions or comments, I'd like to move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
2580-2013 to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 333.2.027 RR Rural Residential District of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 5811 Olentangy River Road to permit a boarding house in the RR Rural Residential District. The applicant is Peter and Jill Dole. Proposed use is a boarding house, and this received the City Department recommendation for approval. And I have no speaker slips. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
And last is 2579, 2013, which I would like to first to remove from the table.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
To rezone 753 Chambers Road, being 0.6 plus or minus acres, located on the south side of Chambers Road, 170 plus or minus feet west of Olentangy River Road, from R Rural District to CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The applicant is Lennox Town Plaza LLC. The proposed use is mixed commercial development. It received the Development Commission recommendation for approval and also the City Department recommendation for approval. And I have no speaker slips. If there are no questions or comments, I would like to first to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
And next, I'd like to move for passage.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
And that is all we have in zoning tonight, President Ginther.
Thank you. If there's nothing else to come before council this evening, entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Clerk, call the roll.
Craig Klein, Miller Mills, Tyson, President Ginther.
We stand adjourned.